the last defensive coach that was hired, Mike Macdonald from the Seahawks. I think this is he just had such a full cupboard in Baltimore that I mean, obviously he doesn't quite have in Seattle, but he was so good last year and the year before that even with a defense that was the worst rush defense in the league, the Seahawks were one of 3 teams last year to give up positive EPA per rush attempt, which is, if you studied like analytics, it's really difficult to have positive EPA on run plays.
Yeah.
So if you're giving that up on defense, like every carry, you're getting steamrolled.
Right.
And like you make it to the point where teams, they don't have to actually be, they don't have to put the ball in the air. If you don't have to put the ball in the air, that's like the most purest form of football. You're just going to get trampled. But what's interesting is like they did spend, right? They spent on Draymond Jones. They spent the 5th pick on, spent the 5th pick on Devon Witherspoon last year. Where can the improvements come from Mike Macdonald? And is it like reasonable for this, for Seahawks fans, really everyone else, to expect this defense to kind of take off this season? Because that's all they're missing. You know, as much flack as Geno Smith gets from certain people, he's playing with one of the worst defenses in football last year.
I mean, for sure. I think, well, that's what's going to be interesting to me about watching this defense in comparison to Baltimore last year, is that this defense clearly doesn't have like the linebacker talent that he had in Baltimore. And that definitely allowed them to do some different things in terms of zone coverage, in terms of creating pressures, creatively moving guys around. But one thing that Seattle does have is depth on the back end. So I'm really fascinated to see if he changes gears and maybe plays a little bit more predictable up front and just uses guys like Devon Witherspoon to blitz, play in the slot. Maybe you get more out of Tariq Woolen. He looks closer to maybe what he was when he got really hot as a rookie than what it was maybe last year. And that's not to say that he was a bad player, you know, when he was out there. It's just a matter of, I think, balancing out his level of play because he does have so many tools, getting the most out of Mike Jackson again, and using that combination of safeties of Julian Love and Rayshon Jenkins to maybe take away throws in the intermediate area of the field. I'm fascinated to see what it looks like from a coverage perspective, because to your point, I mean, they don't have a lot of edge rush. They did spend on the defensive interior, which I think is a signal as to what Mike Macdonald really values in building the defense, is having guys that play, you know, those 4 eyes, those 3 techniques, guys who can play the nose and create, you know, up the spine of the defense and kind of playing everything else off of that. So I think if Draymond Jones is the player that he was in Denver when he was at his best, if Big Cat Leonard Williams can still give you something as a pass rusher and run defender, then I think that they can be probably about average, you know, without having high level pass rush. And I think it maybe just try to cheat by. And if they're like a 9-8 team, you probably count that as a success, and they're competitive enough to go toe to toe with San Francisco, maybe 1 out of their 2 games, go toe to toe with the Los Angeles, maybe 1 out of their 2 games, and you tread around 500. You probably say it's a success no matter what.
Yeah. I think that's fair. And it's just like, man, if you can just get to like the 20th, 18th best defense, which I think is on the table for them. I mean, they still have some pieces.
They have some pieces, yeah.
Like
I mean, Osu was always going to be productive as a run defender, high effort guy. They have to get something out of Boye Mafe and Derek Hall as 2nd-round picks, because they've taken so many swings at that edge rusher position in the top 100. Something's got to shake out there. And that, I think, is really what's going to mark how successful they can be, where their ceiling is as a defense, is if some of those young guys up front can give them something.
Yeah, I don't know if they can like win the NFC West, but I think they have enough on the roster to get back to the playoffs. Like the whole thing, not just the defense, but you look at offense and like the offensive line, they still have potential, even if it hasn't quite materialized yet. So, man, I just think they're close. I want to see how they split up Byron Murphy and Draymond Jones snaps, because for a defense like Mike's, it feels a little redundant, just a smidge, but at the same time, like you gotta play with the hand you're dealt with, and at least you could see a world where those 2 guys can be like an interior like pressure package, right? Where maybe those guys can get upfield a bit, even if they're not stopping the run like you would hope. But I think they probably need a pretty big year from Byron Murphy, like right off the gate to
Right.
get things
Yeah.
going.
Right. No, for sure.
How do you feel about Murphy in this defense, just in general?
I love the pick. I think that, well, it again, like you take certain picks or certain pickups in free agencies as signals from coaches and GMs as to where their priorities lie. And I think that picking Byron Murphy, I think, spoke a lot to how Mike Macdonald viewed Matabike's role in his defense in Baltimore, and needing to get and wanting to get a guy who can be a game changer on the interior that you can't block one-on-one, a guy who grew, Byron Murphy grew a bunch as a run defender throughout his career at Texas. And by that last year, I mean, there was just nothing the Big 12 teams could do with him. So I think if you can get that level of play out of that guy, it really does cover for the fact that your inside backer rotation is Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker, which is probably not the most inspiring thing in the world. And if he can give you something as an interior pass rusher, that takes some of the pressure off of Boye Mafe and Derek Hall to hit right now, So I do think he has to give an impact right away if they're going to hit their ceiling as a defense in that kind of 16 to 20 range, like you said.
Yeah, good luck. Rams are coming. 49ers
yeah,
are still
Rams,
good.
Niners, you got to see those guys 4 times.
Cardinals got Marv.
Yeah.
I posted like in our group chat yesterday, but there was a re-mock draft from like I think the 33rd team that had Tariq Woolen going 9th overall. Like, and it's like, oof. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
because I remember at his rookie year, there were Seahawks fans that were mad that Sauce won Rookie of the Year over him. I'm like, guys, they're not the same.
Yeah, they're not the same player at all. Not at all.
You're just looking at interceptions,
dude. You're not. You're not getting it.
Yeah, these are not the same. Not the same thing
at all. But I think there's something there with Devin Witherspoon. Like that will be the one guy that I think could be a game changer for them. Even though he's not Kyle Hamilton in terms of versatility, he can maybe be I guess a diet version of what Marlon Humphrey is. Who can play inside or out, be a blitzer, fit the run, play physically. That's kind of Devin Witherspoon's wholesale switch.
That was fun watching him do that his rookie year, because when I watched him at Illinois, I thought he was just going to like stick on the outside, like a little feisty outside corner, but they saw the vision to kind of expand that. And he did more at the NFL level his rookie year than I thought he would be able to do at that size. So I'm really interested to see what Mike has plans for him. I would imagine Tariq is just going to be planted as one of the outside corners. Don't ask him to do anything else. And then we'll see how the rest of the defense plays out, because I think they have just enough juice to at least not be like one of the worst run defenses you've seen over the past few years. Like when you're getting trampled by Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, something's got to change. Something's got to change.